Hare Hare. Everybody. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Astottra Sarasya Shriman His Divine Grace Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Astottra Sarasya Shriman His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Ananta Kodi Vaishnav Vrinde Ki Ramacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Sako Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinde Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Gaur Premanande. All glories to the Assembled Devotees. All glories to the Assembled Devotees. All glories to the Assembled Devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Radha. All glories to Shri Radha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Today, based on the request from one of our beloved devotees, we are going to read from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 20. So from your yellow Bhagavad Gita, please turn to page 86. Page 86 in your yellow Bhagavad Gita. Jayate mriyate va kadachin. Na jayate mriyate va kadachin. Nayam bhutva bhavita vanabhuya. Ajo nitya sasvatoyam purano. Na hanyate hanyamana sarire. Na jayate mriyate va kadachin. Nayam bhutva bhavita vanabhuya. Ajo nitya sasvato em purano. Na hanyate hanyamana sarire. Na jayate from all material desires as well as lamentations, can, by the grace of the Supreme, understand the glories of the soul. Krishna is the fountainhead of the super soul also, as it will be disclosed in the following chapters. And Arjuna is the atomic soul, forgetful of his real nature. Therefore, he requires to be enlightened by Krishna or by his bona fide representative, the spiritual master. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadanti Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapata Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sagitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagagana Lalita Shri Vishakhamritamcha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sudevi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatirubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudhi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Krishna again, we are reading from chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, verse 20. The title of this chapter is Contents of the Gita Summarized. Again, the translation: for the soul there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. So here, in this wonderful purport by Srila Prabhupada, he's explaining the 6 transformations that the body undergoes. Any body, whether it's a human body or animal body, it undergoes 6 types of transformation. And it's wonderfully explained here. There is a birth. So if you're a human being or animal, there is birth. Then it remains there for some time. Then there is growth. So birth remains there for some time. Then there is growth. Then there is transformation. Then there is decay. And then there is death. So there is no escaping from this 6 transformation. If we have this human body or animal body, we cannot escape from this 6 transformations of the body, which is again birth, stays there for some time, then there is growth, then there is modification, then there is decay, and then there is death. In this particular verse, Lord Krishna is explaining about the soul, which is diametrically opposite to the 6 transformations that the body undergoes. Here, Lord Krishna is explaining the soul has no birth, no death. So here Krishna is explaining twice in this verse to reiterate, for the soul there is no birth. So if you see here in the translation, in the first line itself, Krishna is explaining to Arjun, for the soul there is neither birth. So we'll stop with that. As well as, you go to the 3rd line, the first word is unborn, which is aja. So twice Lord Krishna is explaining, for the soul there is no birth. And then the second transformation is there is existence. That means after birth there is existence. What does existence mean? When the body is born, and then later on when the body dies, in between the body exists. So that is existence. But for the soul, because there's no birth and because there's no death, there is no question of existence. Because it is eternally existing. So it does not exist between birth and death. It's eternally there. So that's the meaning of the second line. Nayam Bhutva Bhavita Vana Bhuya. Is not come into being, will not come into being, does not come into being. It's always there. So that answers the second comparison, diametrically opposite comparison. So there's no birth, there is no existence between birth and death. It's always there. And the third one is, there is some sort of byproducts. So here Prabhupada is explaining that it produces some effects. But then the word sasvato, if you see the meaning, Sasvato means permanent. It's always there. So it's not the question of, it is not the question of producing some effects. It's permanently there. And also gradually dwindles, which is decay. But here, there is Nityo. The word Nityo is there. Permanent. That means there's no question of decay. And then, twice in this verse, Lord Krishna is saying that for the soul there is no death. Again, in the first line, Lord Krishna is saying for the soul there is neither birth nor death at any time. And also, if you see the penultimate line and the last line, he is not slain when the body is slain. So twice in this verse, Lord Krishna is reiterating, for the soul there is no birth, and he is also unborn. And then for the soul there is no death, and also he is not slain. So these are all the characteristics of a soul, and the comparison between the 6 transformations that the body undergoes and the soul does not undergo these 6 transformational changes. And also in the first line of the purport, Prabhupada is explaining qualitatively the small atomic fragmental part of the spirit, Supreme Spirit, is one with the Supreme. So here, what is the nature of the soul? The nature of the soul is Satchidananda. All of us would have heard this term, Sat-Chit Ananda. So these are 3 parts of one word, Sat-Chit Ananda. Sat means eternal existence, Chit means eternal knowledge, and Ananda means eternal bliss. So eternal existence, eternal knowledge, and eternal bliss is the characteristic of the soul, and this is the supreme characteristic of Lord Krishna. Because we are part and parcel, we also have that. But so qualitatively, Prabhupada is explaining, we are same fragmental part of the Supreme in that way. But quantitatively, there is no comparison, because the Supreme Lord is infinite, whereas we as Jivatma are infinitesimal. Infinitesimal means very, 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 very small. Infinite means there is no limit. So that's the difference between the Supreme Lord and the Jivatma. We are infinitesimal, small, and the Supreme Lord is infinite. And this is wonderfully explained by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by the Achintya Beda Beda Tattva. Tattva means truth. Achintya Beda Beda means inconceivably and simultaneously one and different. Inconceivably and simultaneously one and different. That means again, qualitatively we are the same, because Satchidananda, as far as the soul is concerned, not the body, as far as soul is concerned, Satchidananda. But quantitatively we are infinitesimal and the Supreme Lord is infinite. Just like the sea water, one drop of sea water qualitatively is the same as the whole of the ocean, because it's salty, it's got the characteristics of the whole ocean. Same way the sunlight, the speck of sunlight, is got the same characteristic as the sun, but quantitatively there is no difference. Sun globe and the sunlight, there is so much of difference, but qualitatively there is no difference. Similar to the spark from the fire. So Prabhupada gives all these wonderful analogy. When there's a spark from the fire, the spark has got this little bit of heat and light, but not as much as the actual fire. So fire is the Supreme Lord and the spark is the Jivatma. We're all parts and parcel of the Supreme. So those are the characteristics. So this is a verse which is in the middle of the science of soul. So the description of soul is given in Bhagavad Gita from verse 11 of the 2nd chapter to verse 30 of the 2nd chapter. So this is very, very basics of Bhagavad Gita, because it's very early in Bhagavad Gita, the science of soul. So there are 20 wonderful verses in Bhagavad Gita from the 11th verse of the 2nd chapter to the 30th verse. So this 2.20 verse that we are reading today is bang in the middle. So this is the 10th out of the total of 20 verses that Lord Krishna is explaining about the science of soul to Arjuna. So na jayate mrete va kadachin nayam bhutva bhavita vana bhuya ajo nityo sasvato yam purano na hanyate anyamana sarire. The body can be slain, will be slain, but the soul is not slain when the body is slain. So now all of us may be wondering, okay, now with my eyes, every day I'm seeing myself in the mirror. So who's that? I'm seeing myself in the mirror. I have a body, but it is deteriorating little by little. Gray hairs come, hair fall, and I see the other living entity. They also become old, and one day they die. But what is this soul? This explanation of na jayate mrite, no birth, no death. Whatever I can see with my eyes, I can feel, I can smell, whatever I can try to comprehend with my senses. I don't know what is this, what is explained here. I'm not able to comprehend that. When I see there is a body which is dying, but here it says the soul is not dying. So here, Prabhupada is explaining what we see is the external part, which is what is the obvious. But we need to see beneath the obvious to understand what is the soul, which is our true self. So what we see is like the jacket. Again, Prabhupada is giving wonderful analogy that if the body itself is the soul, if you consider the body itself as the soul, then the shirt that we wear is the subtle body, and then a jacket which we wear on top is the gross body. So again, the soul is inside, then covered by the subtle body, which is made up of, what are the three subtle bodies? Mind, intelligence, and false ego. False ego is when we think that we are the body and not the soul. That is the first layer of covering for the soul. The second layer of the covering for the soul, which is like the jacket, which is what we have as a body, is gross body of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. So we can see the body that we have is made up of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. So earth, all the skin that we have, the hair that we have, the flesh that we have, all that is got the base of earth. Then earth, water, the blood that we have, the saliva, all that forms the water part of the substance in our body. Earth, water, fire. When we have prasadam or food, we're able to digest the food because there's fire in our stomach. So that is the earth, water, fire. Air, the air that we breathe, all the air that we have in the body. And the space that we have in our body is the ether. So the soul has got the first layer of covering, which is the subtle body made up of mind, intelligence, and false ego. And the next layer, which is made up of the gross body, which is earth, water, fire, air, and ether. So whatever we see with our eyes, with our senses, is the coat or the jacket of everybody that we see. So we see somebody's from Sri Lanka, we term somebody he's white-bodied, he's rich, he's poor, he's beautiful, ugly, all that. It's a dog, it's a cat, all that are the external body, which is the outer coat that we have as a soul. So that is the difference. What we see as the body, some has more hair, less hair, all that is the designation for the dead body. That's what Prabhupada says. So the soul is the one that makes the body alive. Otherwise the body is dead. When the soul enters, then there is life. And when the soul leaves the body is dead. Just like a puppet. Like they say, when you put your hand inside, it moves and does everything. Like that, the soul goes inside and it activates. When the soul is not there, there is no life in the body. So those are the so the next question is, how many different types of gross bodies are there? So we see animals, we see plants. So how many total number of these different species of lives are there? So again, the answer is there in Padma Puran. It's one of the oldest Puran, and in that it says there are a total of 8.4 million species of life. So we may have heard this before. 8.4 million species of life that are there in this universe, not just on planet Earth. So there are 8.4 million species of life. And it's also, it gives how many are aquatics, how many are plants, how many are insects, how many are birds, how many different species are beasts, and how many different species in human beings itself, which is 400,000. So there are 900,000 different species of aquatics. So what you see is fish and sharks and tortoise. There are 900,000 different species of aquatics. Then there are 2 million species of plants, different types of plants all over the universe. 2 million different, we're not talking about 2 million trees. We're talking about 2 million different species. It could be coconut tree, it could be different trees. Then we have 1.1 million species of insects. Then there are 1 million species of birds. Then there are 3 million species of bees, and there are 400,000 different species of human beings. So you can ask, how come there are different types of human beings? So Prabhupada is explaining, when you go to remote mountain areas, there are people who eat other people. When they see a human being, they kill them. So their consciousness is differentiated by consciousness that different human beings have. So when they eat human beings, they are not developed. So they are all in the lower consciousness of human species itself. So now that we know there are 8.4 million species of different lives, then the question is, how does one get different types of body? How does one get a man's body, a woman's body, a dog's body, a horse's body, a demigod's body? Even a demigod is part of this 400,000 human species. So how does a soul gets different bodies? Everywhere you see there's a mosquito, there is a fly, there is snake, everywhere there is tree, plants. So how does a soul get a particular type of body? So again, the answer is there in Vedic literature, and Prabhupada in his lectures, in this Science of Soul from 2.11 to 2.3 lectures, amazing lectures. So here he's explaining, a soul gets different types of body based on few factors. One is karma. Karma is simple cause and effect. So we get good karma or bad karma. Based on karmic reactions, we get a beautiful body, we get an ugly body, we get a lion's body, a tiger's body, based on karma, based on our desires. What is that we desire at the time, and then what we think at the time of death. What is there as thought in ourselves at the time of death. So when we are about to die, when we think of eating meat or whatever it is, Paramatma in our soul, Sarvasya Chaham Riti Sanyavishto Mattasmriti Jnanam Apohanamcha. So the Supreme Lord, twice or more, he says in Bhagavad Gita that I am seated in everyone's heart. So there is a witness and a sanctioner. So he is witnessing and he is sanctioning. Okay, you want to eat meat, no problem. In the next life, you will get the body of a tiger or a lion with very strong teeth. You can eat meat to your heart's content. But then we are degenerating into this animal body. Again, we have to come back in this 8.4 billion species of life, wherever this lion or tiger is, and then find our way up to this human being again. So this human being is a junction point at which we can either springboard to higher realms. If you go to higher planetary system anywhere in this material world, we come back again after our enjoyment. Just like we go to Cuba, we go to Jamaica, 1 week vacation, all paid vacation. Wonderful. All of us are so happy. But unfortunately, the countdown starts on day 1. -7, -6 days, -5 days. Your enjoyment is reducing. And at 0, you got to come back to Toronto, start work at 6 o'clock in the morning, come back at 11. So like that, we go to higher planetary systems as well. We have to come back to Earth after we exhaust our pious credits. So how do we get different types of body? Is the karmic reactions based on our desires, the thought at the time of death. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam. So 8.6 Bhagavad Gita, very very famous sloka. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam. Pradantante kalevaram. Here, whatever you think at the time of death, you think. So Prabhupada is explaining, if you think of sleeping all the time, at the time of death, whatever thought is there as the most prominent thought during the course of our life, that's what we will think at the end of our life. We think of sleeping, and then we will get a bear's body. Prabhupada says bears sometimes sleep for few months during winter. No problem, we'll get a bear's body. For some people who do not like to wear their dress, who like to expose their body, and in the Vedic literature it says they will become trees. Nalakuvera and Manigriva, the past time, we get to know they've been cursed by Narad Muni to become trees. So we get body of tree. So like that we can get any type of body based on karmic reaction, based on our desires, based on our last thought at the time of death. But Krishna gives, the good news is there in Bhagavad Gita, 5th verse of the 8th chapter. Anta kalecha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram yat prayati samadbhavam yati nastyastra samshayam. Whomsoever at the time of death thinks of me will attain me without fail. So if you think of Krishna, we will go to Goloka Vrindavan. Vaikuntha, up to Goloka Vrindavan. If we think of any demigod, and if we have the pious credits, karmic reactions and the desire, we'll go to any demigod planet as well. But it goes up to Swargaloka, or it may even go up to Brahmaloka. But after we exhaust our pious credits, we have to come back. But it does not mean that we will get only human form of body and animal form of body. We can even get ghost form of body when we commit suicide. So it is clearly stated, when somebody commits suicide, they will get ghost body. And also there are other ways by which one gets ghost body. So this is the basics of, these are the basics of the characteristics of a soul. Again, if you read from the 11th verse to 30th verse, it's a wonderful, nice reading. And it's immutable as well. The soul is immutable. You cannot change that. It is immeasurable. Then you can ask, what is the size of the soul? So now that we know, what we see is the body, which is the external form, and the soul is inside. What is the size of the soul? So that's a very good question. Again, in the Svatasvatara Upanishad, it says, the size of the soul is 1/10,000 the size of the tip of the hair. So you take the tip of the hair, cut it into two. Just imagine how small the tip of the hair is. You cut that into two. Again, cut that one piece into two. Like that, you cut it 1/10,000 the size of the tip of the hair, which is immeasurable. So that is actually what we are. Not who we see in the mirror, which is the temporary material part of our body, but we are the spirit soul, and the size is 1/10,000 the size of the tip of the hair. Next question, where is the soul situated in the body? So we have a body. Where is the soul situated in the body? Again, in Mundaka Upanishad it says, the soul is situated in the core of our heart. That is the location of the heart. The soul is situated there. Not only, and then what are the two types of souls? Are there more than one type? Yes, soul and the super soul. Soul is, all are same, there is no difference. We may have different bodies, which again is the external form, but the soul is the same, Sachidananda. And there are two types of soul. One is the soul, Jivatma, and the other one is Paramatma. So as in the Prabhupada's purport, Prabhupada's explaining, two birds in the same tree of body, where one, Jivatma, is eating the fruits of material happiness, whereas the other bird, which is Paramatma, is just a witness and a sanction. Next question. How do I, so now that we know what is the soul, we are the soul, relationship between body and soul, because the soul is covered by subtle body and the gross body. How do I perceive the presence of the soul? You're telling me about all this soul, and soul is birthless, it does not die, is aja. What is the correlation? How do I perceive the presence of soul in me? I do not see the soul. Yes, we cannot see. Even for video conferencing, for us to see somebody in our phone, for us to do a video conferencing, you need a type of phone. You cannot use any phone, and you also need the technology. You need 3G technology to see that person. Like that, we cannot see our soul with the material eyes, but only with the transcendental eyes, we can see the soul. So how do you perceive the presence of the soul? First of all of us are alive. We are alive means it proves that the soul is there. Without the soul, the body is dead. And also, this reincarnation theory gives us a wonderful idea of the continuity of the soul in different living entities. And this is a very, very common subject. If you go to Google and type in Ian Stevenson is head of psychiatry department in University of Virginia. He's not a devotee. He's not influenced by any religious upbringing or thinking. Now he's spent 40 years of his life. He passed away recently. He spent 40 years of his life in analyzing this reincarnation theory. He did 3,000 case studies. He's got proved 3,000 case studies where he's taken children between the ages of 2 to 6 from different countries, not just in India. He's been to Turkey, Philippines, and everywhere there's amazing evidence of this reincarnation. And this reincarnation, it proves that the soul goes and lives beyond one particular body in one lifetime. So there is one beautiful case of Mana and Chakravarti, and her name is Shukla. So this girl Shukla is 1.5 years, and she's hugging this pillow and she's crying. Mini, she was crying. And then her parents were wondering, what is this? She can't even talk properly, but she's saying this word mini so very well. And then she started saying that this Minnie is my daughter. Minnie is my daughter. She's hugging this pillow and saying, Minnie is my daughter. Then parents wanted to investigate more. What is this Minnie? And then she's growing up a little bit more. She's 4.5 years. Then she says, my daughter's name is Minnie, and she lives in a place which is 11 miles north of where they live. This is in North India, West Bengal. I used to live 11 miles close to where we live, and that's where my family is. And she gives all the names of her husband in the previous life, child, which is this Minnie, which is the daughter, father-in-law, brother-in-law, brother's name. And then a father is working in railways, Indian Railways. And then he found out from his friend that there is a place called this Bunopal, I think is the name of this place in West Bengal. Then they decide to take this girl. They take this girl close to that place, about a kilometer away from this place. And she said, I know where my house is, which is her house where she lived in the previous life. And she took all of them, her present father, mother, and everybody. She takes all of them to that particular house. And they asked the neighbors, is this the person's name? Her name is so such and such. She was the wife of Chakravarti. They said, yeah, that is the house. So she went so nicely to that house, but then she got stuck, because when she's trying to enter the house, she sees there's a big wall, and she's confused how to enter the house. Then the people from inside the house, they came and they said, in the last 6 years, they've actually closed the door that used to be in that side, and they changed it to the other side of the road. So now the entrance is from the other side. She did not know, because she had died by that time. But she took them to that particular house, and she's 5 years at that time, and she pointed to each and everybody. That is my daughter. Her name is so-and-so. This is my mother. Her name is so-and-so. Father's name, everybody. And when they were actually going, she saw her father actually walking across the field there, and she put her head down. In India, as a mark of respect for your father-in-law, you put your head down. She's 5 years old, but she's thinking that she's still that, daughter-in-law of that person, and she's putting her head down. So some fascinating examples are there about reincarnation, which shows that the soul does not die when the body is slain, and there is continuity in this soul. And he's done, as I said, 3,000 case studies are there during his 40 years of him being, in this field. And there's one more case study in Turkey, where one person, he was born with a big mark in his skull, circular mark in his skull. And when he was born up to age of 6, he remembers everything, and he said, I'm born 30 miles away in Turkey, and so-and-so shot me through my head. So this mark is in a different body. In the next life, he's got this circular mark on his head, on his skull. And then they took the autopsy report, because he's saying, my name was so-and-so, I was killed by so-and-so, and that person who killed him is actually in jail, because he got caught, but he died. And then they took the autopsy report, and then there is a drawing of autopsy report, and perfectly it matches with this circular mark that he's got in this next life. So this amazing, I would strongly recommend you to do some research on Ian Stevenson and his reincarnation projects that he's done. How else can we perceive the presence of the soul? We can perceive the presence of the soul by Vedic literatures. Vedic literature, we can't go beyond Vedic literatures. Why is that? This is not like somebody writing an article in Toronto Star or Toronto Sun where there need to be a proofreading, he can make a mistake. This is not like that. Why? Because it is put in writing by the literary incarnation of Supreme Personality of God himself, who is Vyasadeva. So there's no mistake here. And Srimad Bhagavatam, for example, is called as Amala Purana. Amala Purana means spotless Purana. There is no mistake in that. So, and there is, in general, in nature, there are 4 types of defects for human beings. And what are they? Imperfect senses, right? We cannot see only between 400 nanometers and 800 nanometers we can see. That is the wavelength that we can see. And we can hear only between 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. Below that, we cannot hear. Above that, we cannot hear. Whereas mice and shark and elephant can hear. If you remember, during tsunami, all these animals got to know about this and they were running. So, as human beings, we have limitation. And same way, animals also have the limitation. So, with our imperfect senses, we will not be able. So, human beings have imperfect senses, propensity to cheat, and we will make mistakes and we can be illusion. We see a rope and we can think a snake or vice versa. Propensity to cheat because we want more and more happiness. We will go to the extent of cheating to get that. So human beings, we have these 4 defects. Whereas Vyasadeva, Narada Muni and all of them, when they put something in writing, they are called as Trikalagya. Trikalagya means one who knows past, present and future. So they don't make any mistake because Vyasadeva is the literal incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Srimad Bhagavatam, there is prediction in several chapters. Lord Buddha's appearance, it's there as early as the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. We not only get to know the name of Buddha, we get to know where he's going to be born. Lord Buddha will be born in Gaya, and his mother's name also is there, Anjana. And this is 2,500 years before Buddha was born. So this is the first canto. Then you go to 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the 1,000 years before the advent of Alvars, the famous 12 Alvars from the Sri Sampradaya. That is there in the 5th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. Then the famous prediction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his arrival is predicted in Srimad Bhagavatam. And various other incarnations, it's all there in Srimad Bhagavatam, thousands of years before the Supreme Lord can appear. What about Kalki Avatar is going to be appearing at the end of 432,000 years, at the end of Kali Yuga, and that is there in Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is Amala Puran, spotless Puran. And here there are so many wonderful pastimes of reincarnation. We can see Bharat Maharaj, he was ruling the whole of Bharat nation at that time. It was not India at that time, the whole world he was ruling. And when it was time for him to retire, he retired. He went to a forest. It's a long story, we can hear it some other time. But in a nutshell, he goes to a forest and there he falls in love with a small deer. The deer was about to die. He takes the deer and he was so fascinated by the deer. And then at the time of death, he thought about the deer, and the next life he became a deer. It is there in Srimad Bhagavatam. And because he was such an exalted devotee, he remembered his past, and in the following life, he becomes Jada Bharat. And that's like when he's born as Jada Bharat, King Raghuguna is there, he's jumping, he does not even want to kill the ant. And then there is a wonderful conversation between King Raghuguna and Jada Bharat. There is also, some of them are, esoteric pastimes or leela, but for us to get an understanding, the soul can take on any body and will take on anybody. Even Jai and Vijay, from the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we hear about the gatekeepers in Vaikuntha, Jai and Vijay. When the 4 Kumaras go, they are stopped, and then the 4 Kumaras curse them to be born in material world. And then Lord Vishnu himself comes and he gives an option to Jai and Vijay. You are either going to be born in 7 lifetimes as my devotee on earth, or 3 lifetimes as my enemy. Which one do you prefer? Of course, Jai and Vijay said, I want to be your enemy, not because they want to be enemy of the Lord, but they want to be away from the Lord for a less duration of time. So they said, we will take birth 3 lifetimes on earth. And what do they become? The first lifetime, Jai and Vijay become, anybody remembers? Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. And then later on they get killed by Lord Narasimhadev and Varahadev. And then in the second incarnation, they become Ravana and Kumbhakarna. And Lord Ramachandra annihilated them. And in the third life, they become Dandavakra and Shishupal. And at this time, Lord Krishna takes care of them, not only them, but many other demons are killed. So these are 3 lifetimes. So this is part of a leela, but just for us to get an idea. In the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, this wonderful narration of Gajendra Moksha is there. So the crocodile catches the leg of King Gajendra, the elephant, and there is a severe fight for 1,000 years. And at that time, King Gajendra prays beautifully to the Lord based on the prayers that he offered or he learned in the previous life. And then he's offering a beautiful lotus flower to the Lord Vishnu, who's coming on Garuda. And at that time, the Lord severs the head of crocodile and he gives him the same body for Gajendra. And then crocodile becomes a Gandharva. And in the previous life, the crocodile was King Indradumna. What did he do? He went to the forest and he was meditating, and he did not give respect to Agastya Muni when he came. So he got cursed. You are so dull. You did not know that a great Muni is come. I curse you to become a dull animal like elephant. So he becomes an elephant in the next life. But the curse of great sages are always a blessing. Alakumera and Manigriva, they were cursed to become trees, but then they were liberated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They were witnessing all the beautiful pastimes of Lord Krishna. King Uhu, so this crocodile was King Uhu in the previous life, and he was cursed by Devala Rishi. Devala Rishi was taking bath in a river, and then King Uhu went underneath the water and pulled his leg. And he said, you pull my leg like a crocodile, in the next life you will become a crocodile. So he becomes a crocodile. So this is a wonderful pastime of Gajendra and crocodile, who are King Indradumna and King Uhu. So these are all the examples by which from Puranas we get to know that that the soul goes beyond one particular body. There are many more wonderful pastimes. One is from Ramanujacharya's pastime. So he was there 1,000 years ago on planet Earth. He's very, very famous Acharya from the Sri Sampradaya. So he was a very, very bright student of Yadava Prakash, and he was a Mayavadi philosopher, Yadava Prakash. And one, the princess of Kanchipuram, she was possessed by a Brahma Rakshasa ghost. And he called Pandits, Gurus, Saints, Sages, everybody, Yadava Prakash himself. Nobody could get rid of this Brahma Rakshasa ghost from this princess of Kanchipuram. But when Yadava Prakash started reciting some mantras, the Brahma Rakshasa ghost said, you fool, Yadava Prakash, you cannot chase me out from this princess. You don't have power. Do you remember your previous life? In a Vishnu Chetra, there was a well, and you were a lizard in the well, and you got this human form as a big Pandit because a Vaishnava washed his hand after eating prasadam, and that water fell on you, the lizard, and in this life you are a Pandit. Again, about reincarnation and the soul goes. So, and then the Brahma Rakshasa ghost is saying, and I was a Brahmin in the previous life, was a great Pandit, but what did I do? I did not offer respects to Vaishnavas. I offended a lot of Vaishnavas, and now in this life I am a ghost. And he said the only way I will go out of this princess's body is when you get your youngest disciple Ramanujacharya and place his lotus feet on my head. I want to be liberated that way. That's the only way I will leave this princess's body. So Yadav Prakash calls Ramanujacharya, and Ramanujacharya places both his lotus feet on the head of princess of Kanchipuram. And Ramanujacharya says, how do I know that you left this princess's body? He says, there in the north side of the palace, there is a big banyan tree. The topmost branch of the banyan tree, I will break it when I'm leaving this body, and when I'm flying, I will break the branch of the banyan tree. Then you know I left this body. So immediately when Ramanujacharya places his lotus feet with the dust, immediately this Brahma Rakshasa ghost leaves, and in the next few seconds the big banyan tree branch breaks and falls down, and this princess wakes up as though she woke up from a dream. So again, the Brahma, we can take the body of the ghost as well. The soul can take on any type of body. So again, there are so many more pastimes before the conch is getting ready. So here, what the lesson that we can learn from here is, we are all spirit soul. When somebody asks, who are we? Aham Brahmasmi. We are spirit soul, not the body. And our aim in life is to get out of this perpetual wheel of samsara. And we can do that very easily in this age of Kali by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Let us all chant together. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Grantaraj Bhagavad Gita ki jai.